Super Rugby Pacific round 6 is done and dusted. The fantasy points are in. We're going to go through and look at who the top scorers were for the round in fantasy, both in general and in each position. Before that though, a quick update on how my team went this round. I was a little bit disappointed this round. Unfortunately, there was quite a few duds in my lineup this week. A lot of that came down to a lot of the fixtures not really playing out exactly like I thought they would. The Chiefs, they did well against Pacifica, put on 50 points, but they did get a bit of a scare in that second half, really let Moana come back into the game a bit. And yeah, that sort of limited the upside on these two wingers here. Narawa coming away with 41, Carter alright on 59, but yeah, we were kind of hoping they would really blow through the roof like those Crusaders back three did last week in that Force game. Lagana Masi only getting 8 points, that's really disappointing. And again, it kind of comes down to that draw versus Force game. It really didn't go like I expected. I expected points to be scored, and they were, but they were all scored by the Force. And yeah, the tries that the drawer did get, I mean, they did go one each to the fullback and the winger, just didn't go Lagana Masi's way this week. But yeah, probably wasn't a good prospect in general. Rona as well, 13 points. He's a midfielder, don't expect him to go through the roof, but again, in a game where 50 points was scored, that's kind of disappointing. Lonergan only 4 halfback, no Roygaard this week, had to make a choice, made a pretty poor one. But again, the Brumbies, they lost to the Waratahs. I thought the Brumbies would handle them quite comfortably, even in Sydney, but they did come back into the game a bit. But yeah, it was way more of a struggle than I thought it would be. And look, in the back rows, Tizano's great as expected. The Force went well, he benefited from that. Harry Wilson, pretty average score there, a little bit disappointing. It's a 2-2, only 27, but yeah, I mean, the Blues, that Blues versus Crusaders game, the Blues were terrible. And yeah, it's gonna be really hard to pick these Blues players, and especially guys like Satutu when they do continue to struggle. I thought they were turning the corner slowly, and yeah, really doesn't seem the case. They still have major issues there and a long way to go. And look, never a lot going on up in the type 5. Akanaveri was disappointing as well though, only 22 points for a hook is pretty sad. And again, it just comes down to the way that game played out between the draw and the Force. It just did not go the way I expected. Now, if we come across and look at the top scorers for the round in all positions, in all team, it is the two Force giants, Harry Potter and Nathan Dolly, the hooker. Nathan Dolly racking up 3 tries, more tries. Harry Potter getting a double as well, I believe. I mean, who would have ever picked Force players getting 90 plus top of a round? But you never know with the draw. They are the most inconsistent, unpredictable team. I mean, we know they play poorly away. I thought they were doing a little bit better on that front this year. They ran it close with the Hurricanes and Napier, but no, the Force putting on 52 points, a record score for them, I believe. At least it was in the first half when they put on, I think, 33. And yeah, I mean, look, selected by 1%, 2% of players. I mean, this is probably the people who have random select on their teams. So yeah, no one ever would have picked that. DMAC, of course, we know how good he is. Again, like getting a massive score against Moana, selected by 65% for a reason. Everyone probably made him their captain as well. Muirhead, interestingly, getting 67 points, only with 1 try. He's probably my least favorite of all the Brumbies backs, but it is kind of hard to split them. I mean, they really do spread the points between them, and it's hard to predict where they go. And then that match where the Brumbies ended up losing, I mean, yeah, quite impressive for him to come away with those points. Probably still not going to be my favorite Brumbies back, but we'll see how things unfold going forward. Stevenson was actually the big beneficiary in the Chiefs back 3. yeah, coming away with this 66 points. Not that much more than Carter, but still a lot more than Nadawa. I am starting to think about my approach to the back three, whether it's a good idea to just triple down, take both wingers and a fullback from those teams that are coming up against those teams that have weak defenses like Moana, like the Force. I'm thinking either that's the play or either just going for the fullback and the wing instead of both wings. I keep saying that wings have a higher ceiling but lower floor than the fullbacks, and I do think that's true. But another thing is that fullbacks and wings do complement each other, because for every try, for every line break, there's also an assist. And it's usually the fullbacks that are getting the points from those assists. They're getting the last pass to those wings before they go over. They're, hitting those gaps and getting the line breaks and making the passes to those wingers that go into gaps as well. Willie Havili, another really good round for him. 66 points, 2 tries in a really tough game. He was really strong that game. But yeah, I mean, whenever Mackenzie's there, you still can't pick him. Mackenzie's still ahead of him no matter what Havili does. Like, he's just not as good a pick, unfortunately. Rob Leota, I mean, this guy's good. Still not my favorite pick in the Waratahs back row. I do really like Langi Gleeson, but yeah, picking up a try really pushed him up today. And another interesting performance as well. Kalani Thomas, 61 points, I believe the best out of all the halfbacks, and yeah, he was really electric that game. It was a tough choice to be made in halfback this week because Roygaard wasn't available, and yeah, I really wasn't sure who to go with. Kalani Thomas, I've always been impressed by him coming off the bench for McDermott. He's always looked good, but you can see he's never really had a lot to show for it, and that's why he wasn't really front of mind for me when I was making my picks for halfback, even though obviously he was getting the start this game. But yeah, he was really fantastic. He was sniping around the ruck. He has a really strong running game. He's very quick, and yeah, he really got some major points this week in a pretty tough game against the Highlanders as well. Christie, interestingly, getting 45 coming off the bench, was padded out a bit from this try, but yeah, he looked good in last week's game against the Chiefs as well. I mean, if he ever starts again, he could be a guy to consider as well, even though things are kind of tricky for the Blues at the moment. But otherwise, looking at other positions, I mean, we already sort of covered the back three. Yeah, there's, once you get below sort of Fihaki here, there's a bit of daylight. Tangatau, very good that game, but yeah, only 42 points to show for it. He was super unlucky though. I think he got one try denied and another try that was kind of close. If he got either of those, it really would have pushed him right up near the top. And yeah, like I really talked him up in last week's Best Picks video, and yeah, just again in this game, he really impressed me. Like he's such a good point scoring prospect, even in a tough game, even if he didn't get major points this week either. He really is a top tier outside back in my opinion for fantasy and in general. Tom Wright again, pretty solid on 46. I did actually intend to swap out Laganamasi this week and just sort of forgot about it. If I did, I would have picked up Tom Wright, which would have helped me out a bit. But yeah, he still is down a bit from the heights of last week. And yeah, Tavanawa, he was back on the wing at 11 this week, but still just came away with his average, rock solid 40 points. I wasn't sure what would happen with him being out on the wing instead of at 12, but it didn't really seem to make a difference because he just comes in off his wing anyway. I mean, he was coming in and doing pick and goes at the line like he was a forward, so probably unlucky not to get a try there. That really would have pushed him up. But yeah, he's still a really odd pick for me. and this week didn't change much. Dalguna got 2 tries, only 39 points for it though. Yeah, I still wouldn't feel great about picking Dalguna going forward. I picked him in this Waratahs match, and really, yeah, he gets involved, but he's just, yeah, he's not getting like the line breaks and all that sort of thing that really pushes you up into the big scores. And down at the bottom, Sevu Reece, Will Jordan, very popular picks, not doing very well this week. And yeah, I mean, that in itself wasn't surprising to me, even though I didn't expect the Blues game to go the way it did. I didn't expect the Crusaders to put so many points against them. I thought that game would be close, but I mean, they were never going to run through them like they did in that Force game where they just spread the ball and the space is there and the backs just run it in for free. I mean, the points were always going to come in a trickier way, and that's kind of what happened in that game. Shea Fihaki ended up being the one to get most of the points in that back three anyway, which is probably, yeah, only 2% of people picking him. That's not what anyone would have expected. And looking at the midfield, Marcy ended up being one of the better midfielders, which is kind of funny. But yeah, there's a bit of daylight between these top two and the rest of the pack. Walton, I mean, who would have picked this really massive score for him after doing basically nothing? And, you know, it's not like he's coming off the bench. So, yeah, sometimes it's your day. David Havili continues to be really solid. Quite an impressive performance from him. And, yeah, he remains a very strong, solid pick in the midfield. Not so much happening for Ikitau this week. Brumby's having a tough game. And Talea, I thought he might have a good round, but yeah, not a lot of points, even though he got a try. He did get a bit more ball, but yeah, it was just a tough game for them against the Reds. And these Blues midfielders actually not doing too badly considering how tough that game was for them. And moving on to the loose forwards, we already talked about Rob Leota. A little bit of a surprise there. Carlo Tizano was not though. Miracle Failangi, 45 points again, having another pretty solid score in the back row in a tough game. His score hasn't been padded out by a try here, so yeah, I mean, he remains one of those guys that you do have to consider seriously. Luke Reimer, he's a very good player and he's a good fantasy pick. I didn't really consider him so much this week just because Rory Scott was on the bench and I was thinking maybe he would get subbed, but what ended up happening was Valetini got subbed instead, and I mean, that makes sense. Usually a player, when they've been off for a while, they come back for their first game, they have a start, they usually won't play the full 80, so in the end that wasn't really a surprise. I might have picked him if he might have been my next pick after Satutu if I wasn't going for Satutu. So yeah, he's definitely a guy that remains on the radar, but again, now that Valetini's back, Reimer might go back to sort of trading game time with Rory Scott if Rory Scott's on the bench. So yeah, still a bit to consider with this pick. Tom Christie gets a second start, gets a try. Wasn't sure how this guy was going to go as a fantasy prospect. We know he's really, really strong over the ball. He's great at getting those turnovers. And that gets you points in this game, 4 points each. But it's a bit boom bust. Like, it's hard to predict which teams are going to get the turnovers against. And you can see in neither of these games has he got any turnovers. So yeah, not really a guy on my radar. Probably will disappear when Ethan Blackadder returns as well. Not much happened for Harry Wilson this game. He was pretty busy, did a lot of carries, but didn't really, you know, penetrate a lot with those carries. Came close to scoring. But yeah, he remains still a very good, solid pick. Looking into the type 5, the locks, my favorite category. A lot of locks actually doing pretty well this week, and Selby Rickett, last minute replacement for Tupo Vai, getting 60 points just with the one try. Got a lot of line out ball, made a shit ton of tackles, intercept, line break. Yeah, pretty impressive stats for him. Don't know if he will continue starting. He might. I mean, I don't know how long Tupo Vai is out for, so something to look at. I mean, if he can continue this sort of form, I don't know, he might be a solid pick. Nick Frost actually doing good this week for once. First time he's got a big score here. Didn't actually get a try, but 3 line-out steals. I mean, that'll push you up the ratings quite a bit. One, he got a try, I believe. Yes, that pumped him up. Cullen Grace didn't get a try, but yeah, a couple of line-out steals that really, you know, the set piece was really struggling for the Blues. Yeah, they're down to their 3rd and 4th string hookers, and they're really struggling at line-out, and maybe that's something to think about when making your lock picks. If they're going up against a team that has a struggling line-out, and the Blues line-out probably will continue to struggle unless Eklund or Riccatelli come back. Yeah, that could be a strategy with your locks to try and eke out a few more points. And not a lot going on below Grace there, so having a look at the hookers. Nathan Dolly obviously got those 3 maul tries. Yeah, maul tries haven't really been a thing this season, which is super interesting to me. Like, my strategy with hooker was always going to be, look at the team with the strong mauls, look at the teams with the weak maul defenses, and when they play, that's when you pick. But yeah, it just hasn't really been a thing this year, and it's been more about picking the solid hookers who are just good line-out throwers and get a lot of game time and a part of good scrums, and that's sort of, they'll get you your 40 points. But yeah, Bradley Slater, he got a try that really bumped him up. Richie Asiata, I'm actually quite a fan of this guy. He got a try as well. But yeah, he's a solid pick at hooker. But when Pesler comes back, he won't get the game time anymore. And Milan, this was the Blues hooker. Like, you can see, -6 for lineout errors. That means 3 bungled lineouts and only 4 successful lineouts. But he's still got a good score because he's actually quite good around the park, like ball in hand. And yeah, even in a tough game, he was impressive in that respect. But I mean, look, you gotta have your lineout sorted. And yeah, Taukei'aho, 31, coming off a bench again, did get a try. I'm really waiting for Taukei'aho to get starts because I am a big fan of his. I think he's a good fantasy prospect. And yeah, kind of really disappointing. He finally got another start after this huge 50 points off the bench. But yeah, this game was just a disaster for the Indurua. So yeah, things just did not go well for him. And looking at the props, I think the top 4 here, I think we're all try scorers, which really push them up the list. But otherwise, not a lot going on. I think Tom Robertson was the best prop who didn't score a try. And yeah, just a bunch of tackles and a lot of points for scrums. And that's all I was hoping for when I picked him, and he delivered in that respect. So Angus Bow again having a pretty disappointing week, even in a game that they actually won. So yeah, I thought he was the best prop, but maybe he's not. Maybe that's just the randomness of fantasy. Maybe a bit of both, all of the above. Anyway, guys, you tell me. That'll do it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe if you do want to catch the best picks video for the next round, which should come out on Thursday, and I'll see you then.